Today I thought we'd take some old parts that are left over from upgrades and whatever and put together an almost free computer on the floor. This is going to be a really basic setup, but when we're done we're going to have a fully functional computer. And I think once you see it like this, it's going to take a lot of the intimidation and trepidation out of putting together a computer. What we have here is we have the motherboard with a processor already in it. This is an i5-8500, so it's still a decent processor. We have a stick of RAM. Let's see, going over here we have the power supply and reset switches and the lights that would normally be in the case. In the back we have an adapter, which would normally not be necessary, but we're using an HDMI monitor, and this board is only VGA, so we got to adapt it to use that. Over here we have the SSD drive, which is our hard disk. We have the data cable for that. Underneath it is the power supply, and then the power supply has all these connectors on it, which we'll show you where they go. But yes, it's going to be the thing that powers the motherboard and the drive, and then any other peripheral which you would attach. Okay, so let's go get started. The first thing, we're going to put in the RAM, and this notch is very important because it needs to line up with this notch. If you try to put it in this way, the notch won't align with that thing right there, and it won't go in well. This board is kind of squirrely because most of them have two releases, one on each end like this. But this board, this is not a release. It's solid, so you kind of have to, I don't know what, kind of have to just maneuver it in there. Yeah, I've never seen one like this before. So it just makes the process a little harder. And it's good to do this on a hard surface because if you push hard and you bend the board too much, you can actually break tracings on the other side, and your computer will work for a while and then it'll quit and you'll say, I wonder why that happened. Okay, so you push it in there. Usually it'll make a little snap, and yeah, this handle should be all the way closed. Okay, so that's it for the RAM. Let's take the next step. We already installed the RAM. That's the first plug we use. The next one is this main power plug right here. Then there's this SATA plug. So this is the data plug for the disk drive we're going to be using. And then finally, let me rotate this around to make it a little clearer. We are going to be using, there's an auxiliary power plug on many of these boards, and this plug will range from 4 pins to 8 pins. This one happens to be an 8-pin. And the power, of course, for all of these will come from the power supply. And we'll do close-ups, but we'll start plugging things in and show you where these go. We talked about the plugs we were going to use, so let's start plugging stuff in. The first thing we'll do is the SATA. This is the SDD drive, and it's like a hard disk drive. It has an L-shaped plug, and we make sure that the plug matches, and we slide it on there like that. It also has the same type of power pin, power plug rather, same L shape, and you push that on here. Make sure I got it right or it will not go on. No, that is wrong. There we go. We push that on. Now we are going to take the other end of the data plug like this, also L shaped, and we're going to push it into the one of the SATA plugs that's on the motherboard. Next, we will take this is a 20, they call it a 20 plus 4 pin, and you notice that it slides apart like that. And so you can have a 20 pin motherboard or a 24 pin motherboard, like this one is a 24. It has a clasp on this side, a lock on this side, and then there's a tooth that engages here. Got to make sure those are aligned. You put that on, it goes click. Then the last one we discussed is this 8-pin, and that's over here. Again, this power supply has a very nice feature. It has a 2 plus 2 like that, and again with the lock and the tooth over here on this side to grab, and that goes on there. And then the next thing we do is the power reset and the LEDs, and we'll do a close-up on that to make sure we get a little bit better view of that. Now we're going to put the power pin on here first, and that's a switch. It doesn't matter the orientation. Next is the reset. Again, it's a switch, so the orientation, there's no plus and minus. The next are the LEDs. They do have a plus and minus. The good thing is if you hook them up wrong, they just don't light up. You don't damage anything typically. So there's the plus and minus on the power. And then if I can get these on here, there is the hard disk light, and also it is the hard disk LED is also plus and minus, and that goes on here in the front. Now your board may be very different. I mean, in fact, it's almost guaranteed that every board manufacturer seems to like to put these pins in a different order, and so yeah, you definitely want to check. In fact, that's true of all boards. The layout of the RAM, the layout of the SATA plugs and all that will be different. So, okay, there we are. Next. Okay, let's start it up. And you can see what we've got going. We've got the fan is turning. We've got all the plugs we talked about. And we added this. This is an adapter because we're going to HDMI, and this board only has VGA out. So that's what some of this is. We have added a wireless keyboard and mouse. There's the dongle for that. And yeah, and then we hook the sound to the TV up to the computer. So, does it work? Well, there it is. And you can click on this and it looks an awful lot like a Windows PC. So yeah, that's it for a computer on the floor. They do work, and this does take a lot of mystery and scariness out of the what's going on inside the black box that sits on top or under your desk. Okay, well that was it for this little experiment in creating a computer on the floor. Thanks for watching.